Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Tom Devine, and I'm music director for UUCC. All of our songs today are very simple and easy to sing. You probably know most of them. But we've had so few chances to actually sing together in the last couple of years that I thought we might start today's service with a little song that gives us a chance to warm up our voices and our hearts and just to listen to each other, to blend, and to have some fun. So it also sums up what we're doing when we sing together. We're creating a temple of sound that we can all rest in for a couple of minutes. So this little song is called Welcome to the Temple of Melodious Sound. And it comes from a man named Doug Van Kaas, who's a pioneer of what's called paperless singing, which means you'll learn it by ear. So, many churches have been experimenting with this, and it really helps bring people together. So I invite you to put aside any feelings of embarrassment, any feelings like, oh, this is too silly, or I can't sing, and let your voice ring out. Just have some fun with this. And as Doug always says when he starts his singing session, this is a perfection-free zone. And I promise you, no one will get hurt. Okay? So here's how it starts. I'll sing a little bit of it, and then I'll make you sing, or I'll ask you to sing. All right. Welcome to the temple of melodious sound. Now you. Welcome to the temple of melodious sound. Okay. Then, welcome to the temple of melodious sound. Welcome to the temple of melodious sound. Welcome to the temple of melodious sound. The same as again. Welcome to the temple of melodious sound. The sound goes on and on. The sound goes on and on. The sound goes on and on. Okay? The sound goes on and on. From the beginning now. Welcome to the temple of melodious sound. Welcome to the temple of melodious sound. Welcome to the temple of melodious sound. The sound goes on and on. The sound goes on and on. Now, snap your fingers, and when you're doing it, feel free to harmonize. Okay. Welcome to the temple of melodious sound. Welcome to the temple of melodious sound. Welcome to the temple of melodious sound. The sound goes on and on. The sound goes on and on. I'm running out of breath. Welcome to the temple of melodious sound. Sing it to each other. Welcome to the temple of melodious sound. Welcome to the temple of melodious sound. Now, the sound goes on and on. The sound goes on. The sound goes on. The sound goes on and on. Thank you. So, did anyone get hurt? All right, then let's proceed with our service. Bill?
Thank you, Tom. What letter? L. Stands for louder. This is your volume control. Welcome, everyone. We are so pleased that you're all here today, either present here or watching over YouTube from your home congregation. I'm Bill Hevlin, and along with Tricia Dell, We are your worship associates for today's service. As a reminder, for this in-person service, we are requiring proof of vaccination plus a booster and masks for all but active speakers. We want to particularly welcome our friends from 4 UU congregations. Our sponsor church, UU San Mateo, our friends from UUFRC, our sister congregation, UU Community of Lake County, and our shared pulpit partner church, the UU Fellowship of Santa Cruz County. Some joining us in person, and many over YouTube Live today. This is a first for us, having 4 congregations in attendance. Actually 5, because we should count UUCC. And so we are very happy you could all join us today. Unitarian Universalism draws from the streams of personal experience, from texts of the world's religions, from writings of philosophers, humanists, poets, and songwriters, from the hearts that listen to the earth. We are united in seeking out meaning for our lives. The UU Coastside community welcomes people of all skin tones, the LGBTQ plus community, kids and immature folks, the worried, the eager, the outspoken, the joyful, those at the edge of despair. We welcome those with life challenges and those temporarily without challenges. Here we work to overcome society's systemic biases, and you specifically are most welcome here today. For joys and concerns, the ritual, which happens a little bit later, if you have not picked up a stone, I invite you to do so now. The stones are at the welcome table at the back of the room. After the ritual procession, there is an opportunity for you to speak out your joys and concerns out loud. There is also a book at the welcome table where you can write your joys and concerns to be read by me. UUCC was first introduced to Coast Pride when Jenny Walters, our current chair of Coast Pride's governance board, spoke to us in March of 2021, What's in a Name? Emphasizing how the layers of belonging, being seen, and claiming one's identity can be honored by the use of proper pronouns. Since then, UUCC has joined Coast Pride's multi-faith partner congregations, Coastside Lutheran, the Coastside Jewish Community, the Community United Methodist Church, Holy Family, and Pescadero Community Church to form a covenant between our coastal congregations and Coast Pride to support religious programming, which embraces our beloved LGBTQ plus community. And to honor our commitment, UUCC has directed its 10% share of the UUSM 2022 All Together Now auction to go entirely to Coast Pride. And now, Tricia Dell has a few words to say before she presents the check to Coast Pride.
Thank you, Bill. And I do have a few words to say. I've noticed a pattern with UUCC. 2 years ago, UU San Mateo donated 10% to UUCC, or shared it, not donated it. And they put together this shared pulpit class collaboratively with 4 different congregations, as Bill just said. and generously, didn't charge. It's just this spirit. And now this year, UU San Mateo did the same thing, shared, 10%. And what do they do? They're giving it away to an organization that they care about. UUCC is generous and walks its talk with its values, and I really admire that a lot. And it's Unitarian Universalist values, for sure, walking that talk, but also their COSI community values. So I just wanted to give that little plug. And in the spirit of that, when it comes time to be generous with UUCC, it's a good idea. Now, for what I'm supposed to say. Unitarian Universalism was one of the first churches to advocate on behalf of our beloved LGBTQ plus community. And UU San Mateo is quite active as well in that effort. So now I would like to call up Jenny Walter, Board President of Coast Pride, Deb Hedger, Coordinator of Coast Pride's Multi-Faith Partners that Bill just spoke about, and Board Secretary Cassie Talbot. Here.
Thank you, Tricia.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So here together with you is Deb, my wife, who you know.
I know.
And me, Jenny, and Cassie, our secretary, wasn't able to be here, but she sends her regrets. But we are here in force to accept this amazing privilege and honor.
Wonderful.
And is it okay to say a couple of words?
It is, but I will first give this to
Okay,
you.
no.
Joyfully give you this check on behalf of Unitarian Universalist COSI community, and we are honored to do so.
Well, it's an absolute honor, and I want to say that you've been on this journey with us, this Unitarian Universalist congregation, as well as individually, Tricia. Tricia was the first person who facilitated our board discussion about Coast Pride, and I just want to, officially appreciate that and thank you for that. And then Noreen and Bill have been on this journey with us from the beginning also, being leaders in the multi-faith community. And Bruce and Tom have really lent their generous spirit and skills to our intergenerational videos. And so I just want to say that it's an amazing community you have here. And the fact that unity is in your title, I just want to underscore that, because as we see rights being rolled back, this ability to come together the way you're coming together as a community is so important. And it's important not just for LGBTQ people, but for all people. And so I just want to embrace the values that you profess and that you act on, and that it's not just values that are up in the sky that are abstract but are real. And just share with you that this is going to go to some really great programming for our youth, our support groups for our middle school students, for our high school students, for caregivers and adults of those young people who are coming out, many of whom are trans, and their caregivers are on that journey trying to figure that out with them. And in the fall, we're about to start a sort of a social group for LGBTQ older adults, 55 and up, basically all of our ages here in this room. And so we just, it'll be a social group, however you want to use it. We're very organic in how we've grown, and it's been thanks to generosity of you, all of you. So I just, big thank you. And I want to do a call out to my wife, who's been staffing the multi-faith partnership, which has been just enormous, and you've already heard about it. And so thank you, Deb, so much.
It's my pleasure. And I don't know if I mentioned the checks for $2,400.
Thank you so much. It's amazing. And so your generosity, both of heart and spirit and everything, is so very much felt. And we really, truly, on behalf of Coast Pride, appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
And now Reverend Russ has a few opening words for us.
Good morning. It is a joy and a pleasure to be with you this morning. I welcome all of you who are physically present, all of you who are online, and all who are here in spirit. Humans use metaphors and analogies to describe complex issues. Complex issues like life. Here are some common similes. Happy as a clam. Sad as raindrops on a grave. Busy as a bee. Rich as the mint. Lucky as a lotto winner. Cool as a cucumber. But all these comparisons describe a temporary state and don't capture the entirety of life. For most of us, life is this incredible mixture of ever-changing emotions, and we're unable to hold on to any of them for very long, even though we yearn to cling to those that we think make us happy. And we are fascinated, if not addicted, to the pursuit of happiness, sometimes to our detriment. So for me, life is not a sequence of compartments. For one thing, when one thing happens and then another and then another, for me, life is this incredible, complex, overlapping series of transitions that can pile up and become overwhelming. But the ancients and most religions teach us that life is full of cycles, rhythms, transitions, ever-changing events, and nothing lasts. Now, this can be very frustrating if you're looking for peace and contentment. With everything always changing, what keeps a course forward of leading a meaningful, purposeful life? It's a confusing life. And for most of us, just when we think we figured something out, the whole situation changes. That's why we gather together in worship, to celebrate transitions and to remember that whatever changes come into our lives, our calling is to respond to everything that happens to us, even if we didn't plan for it. We respond to everything with love and compassion. Love and compassion to all that happens in our life, all of our life. If you struggle with getting upset over events that are way outside of your control, you are welcome here. If you are more exhausted than you've ever been in your life through all the changes that recently have happened that no person should have to go through in an entire lifetime, you are welcome here. If you want to fix the problems of the world but don't know how to start because the problems are like a whack-a-mole game, you are welcome here. If you want to leave an everlasting impression of positive change, but as you age, as you realize you're working on a world to be better than you may never experience personally, but you'll work on it anyway, you are welcome here. All of you are welcome here because our most precious resource is each other. Our opening song this morning, opening hymn, is a song. Well, if you guys are a certain age, you may remember this as a Billboard Top 100 song by the Byrds in 1965. But behind that is the actual author of it, Pete Seeger, from the late 50s. And except for the title and the final two lines, the words all come from the 8 verses of the 3rd chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes. So it's interesting to reflect that protest songs from the 60s were actually sung from the Bible. But that's another observation. So Tom will lead us in this song.
Thanks, Reverend Russ. And my neighbor and friend Greg Bowerman has graciously agreed to accompany us on this. Because this is really a guitar song, not a piano song. And yeah, Greg is a talented guitarist, singer, and ukulelist. Is that a word?
It could be.
Yeah, whom you might have seen playing at the Farmers Market in Half Moon Bay or Cameron's Pub or some other local venues. So, we're going to sing this together, and I believe that the words are in order of service. Am I right? And I need the order of service myself, so just a second. All right, great.
Yeah, sure.
Do everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to belong, a time to dance, a time to love, a time to live, a time to feel, a time to live, a time to love, everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to love, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to love, a time to cast away some, a time to gather, to everything. There is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time of love, a time of hate, a time of war, a time of peace, a time to pray and praise, a time to live in love and grace. Everything, there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rest, a time to sow, a time for love, a time for hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late. To everything, there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. One more time. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, and a time to every purpose under heaven.
Hello. So I am going to light the chalice. This chalice, this beautiful chalice that I'm about to light, is carved out of coastal cypress and was crafted and presented to UUCC by UU San Mateo's Tom McCune in November 1915. 2015. Glasses are a little, you know. Thank you for laughing. This same chalice has been lit by UUCC over the past 7 years. including 2 years during the pandemic, where it was handed off among our different chalice lighters. I will now light this UUCC chalice flame, a ritual which unites us all together as Unitarian Universalists. And this particular chalice also represents the friendship between UUCC and UUSM. Due to fire regulations, we will be lighting our chalice with battery power. Try and do this elegantly. Wow, so much for the elegance. There we go. Now please join me in reading these chalice lighting words by Brittany Moses. You have to stop thinking. You'll be stuck in your situation forever. We feel like our heart will never heal, or we'll never get out of these impossible struggles. Don't confuse a season for a lifetime. Even your trials have an expiration date. You will grow, life will change, things will work out. And now Linda Grace will explain our joys and concerns.
Oh, it is lovely to see human beings in the room. And hello, all the folks at home. Thank you for joining us this morning. We have a new way to express our joys and concerns here. Everyone will have an opportunity to share their joys and concerns out loud today. But first we will have a silent processional kind of ritual as we place our stones into the bowl of water here while Tom plays some music. If you have not yet chosen a stone from the basket on the welcome table, please go and get one now. And if you're unable to get up and move, someone will bring the basket to you. For folks at home, if you don't happen to have a stone inside your home or wherever you are watching this service today, choose an object that can represent a stone and have a small bowl of water or a cup of water nearby you so that you can join us in this ritual. Okay, everybody's getting their stones. Wonderful. Everybody has one? Wonderful. Okay. So as you come back to your seats now, I invite you to whisper or envision your joy or concern into the stone that you're holding. And as you're holding it, it will warm up with your body temperature. In the Dagora tradition in which I have been initiated, and in many indigenous traditions, stones hold our stories. They can also help us to relieve our burdens when we place our concerns and our fears into the stone. There will be a moment. Are we doing it now? We're doing it now? I will invite everyone to come down the center aisle and place your stone gently in the water. Make sure that you've spent time with your stone, though, and really given your story to the stone so it can hold it for you. So the water is the element of reconciliation and peacemaking. And when the music ends, there will be time for you to share your joy or concern out loud. But please wait until everyone is back in their seats and Bill will call on you. You can raise your hand. So shall we begin now? I'll start. So I'll ask you to come down the center aisle, place your stone in the water gently, and then walk around to the left and come back to your seat so that we have a nice line. All right.
May we hold with love and care the joys and concerns that have been shared with us here today, as well as those that remain unspoken in the recesses of our hearts. And now for some collective joys and concerns. Alas, from our current times, we have much to speak of. We mourn the deaths of over 50 people found in the tractor trailer in San Antonio, Texas. The local police chief called this a crime against humanity. On June 24, the U.S. Supreme Court of the United States overturned Roe v. Wade, upending nearly 50 years of access to abortion. The UUA president, the Reverend Dr. Susan Frederick Gray, says, "The overwhelming majority of Unitarian Universalists support keeping abortion legal in all or most cases. This is rooted in our principles and our core religious beliefs that affirm gender equity, reflecting a moral commitment to the idea that reproductive care is health care and is essential." UUCC also regrets the recent U.S. Supreme Court decisions limiting environmental regulation, expanding gun rights in New York, and enabling the coercive prayer in public schools. We find two slivers of hope. The Supreme Court permitted the end of the inhumane Remain in Mexico policy for asylum seekers. And on June 25, President Biden signed into law a bipartisan gun control bill. And now, Tom has a reading for us.
Thank you, Bill. Today's reading, may as well take this off for this. Today's reading is an excerpt from Crooked Cucumber, The Life and Teaching of Shunryu Suzuki by David Chadwick. One night in February of 1968, I sat among 50 black-robed fellow students, mostly young Americans, at Zen Mountain Center, Pasadena Springs, 10 miles inland from Big Sur, California, deep in the mountain wilderness. The kerosene lamplight illuminated our breath in the winter air of the unheated room. Before us, the founder of the first Zen Buddhist monastery in the Western Hemisphere, Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, had concluded a lecture from his seat on the altar platform. "Thank you very much," he said softly, with a genuine feeling of gratitude. He took a sip of water, cleared his throat, and looked around at his students. "Is there some question?" he asked, just loud enough to be heard above the sound of the creek gushing by in the darkness outside. I bowed, hands together, and caught his eye. "Hi," he said, meaning yes. "Suzuki Roshi, I've been listening to your lectures for years," I said, "and I really love them. And they're very inspiring. And I know that what you're talking about is actually very clear and simple. But I must admit, I just don't understand it. I love it, but I feel like I could listen to you for 1,000 years and still not get it. Could you please just put it in a nutshell? Can you reduce Buddhism to one phrase?" Everyone laughed. He laughed. What a ludicrous question. I don't think any of us expected him to answer it. He was not a man you could pin down. And he didn't like to give his students something definite to cling to. He had often said not to have some idea of what Buddhism was. But Suzuki did answer. He looked at me and said, "Everything
changes. Then he asked for another question.
Thank you, Tom. I wonder what happens next. So let us turn to today's service. With great pleasure, I introduce our worship leader today, the Reverend Russ Menk. Reverend Russ graduated from the Pacific School of Religion in Berkeley, California, with a Master's of Divinity degree in 2013. He's that young. Prior to his call to ministry, Reverend Russ worked as a middle manager in the aerospace industry in Utah for 29 years. Along that path, he earned a BS in mechanical engineering and an MBA. Reverend Russ grew up in Texas, a sixth-generation Texan, where he met and married his wife, Jackie, 40-plus years ago. They currently have 2 small rescue dogs and an 18-pound cat that I hear has a viral Instagram video. Reverend Russ was ordained by the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Santa Cruz County on March 16, 2014. Now living in Santa Cruz, he continues to pursue his love of lifelong learning, walking on the beach, and being of service to others. Welcome, Reverend Russ.
Okay, here's some questions to ponder without answering out loud. Do you think the world's a mess? Do you think the world has never been this messed up before? Do you think we're doomed? Now, the list of wicked problems of our world is huge, and a wicked problem is one that's very, very complex without a single answer, multi-dimensional, and it's hard to even understand, much less fix. But the list of wicked problems is just overwhelming. The Supreme Court decisions of a very conservative court, for example, Ukraine, climate change, mass shootings, COVID, homelessness crisis, political gerrymandering, and we can just put that in the category of politics. This disturbing revelations of the January 6th hearings. How do we live a life of meaning and purpose when so much is amiss? Is it really any wonder that so many of us are just absolutely exhausted? Yuval Noah Harari. He's a 56-year-old Israeli historian and professor in the Department of History at a Hebrew University in Jerusalem. He's the author of 3 really popular science bestsellers, and his most recent one is 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. And I really recommend that book of anyone who plans to live in the 21st century. In this book, he says you can summarize humanity's state and the condition in 3 simple statements. 1, things have never been better. And he's correct. Life expectancy is higher than it has ever been in all of human existence. Starvation is no longer a major cause of mass deaths. Distribution problems exist, but we have enough food to feed the world. Death in warfare is no longer a major factor in determining major mortality. Technology is providing us this incredibly comfortable lifestyle, and we are awash with information at our fingertips. And epidemics no longer wipe out huge numbers of people. Think about it. The 1918 flu killed over 50 million people. That's approximately 5% of the world's population. Yes, we're coming out of COVID, but things have never been better. So even though it doesn't feel like it sometimes, he observes things have never been better. Which brings us to point 2. Things are really quite bad. And I suspect that many of you can agree with that statement. It's good for me to know that a brilliant historian and I feel and agree upon something. Things are quite bad. And his third point about the current condition of humanity, things could get a lot worse. Now, if Harari is correct, how are we supposed to navigate our life through knowing that things are good, quite bad, and could get a lot worse? How do you navigate through that? Well, Harari says it this way. He says, human beings aren't built for satisfaction. Human happiness depends less on objective conditions and more on our own expectations. Our expectations to adapt to changing conditions, including the conditions of other people, of keeping up with the Joneses. Now, this is to our detriment, because when things improve, our expectations balloon. And consequently, even dramatic improvements in our conditions might leave us as dissatisfied as before. So Harari sums it up in a very simple equation. He says, happiness equals reality minus expectations. Go through that again. Happiness equals reality minus our expectations. So, unfortunately, Harari doesn't provide any prescription, and I guess historians just don't do that. But this is where I like to turn to the ancients and the philosophies and the great thinkers of the world. And I've been reading and studying a lot about recently Stoicism. Now, Stoicism is an ancient philosophy of the life designed how to live a good life. And it dates to before the Common Era to about 300 years after the Common Era, when Christianity really took over and displaced Stoicism as a philosophy and religion. And as Seneca, one of the great Stoics, said in a letter to a friend, no one can lead a truly happy life or even a bearable life without philosophy. Also, while it is complete wisdom that renders a life happy, even to begin the study, even to begin to think about living a good life, makes life bearable. So the Stoics believed that the reason to study philosophy was to become a better person. Better person, day-to-day life. But they didn't teach to think it. They taught to live every action in accordance with your philosophy. And the philosopher Epictetus said straight to his students, don't talk about your philosophy. Live it. Embody it. Now, I'll give you a few quotes just to give you a sampling of some Stoic sayings that resonate with me in this incredibly complex world we're living in. Marcus Aurelius, clear your mind and get hold of yourself as when awakened from sleep and realizing it was only a bad dream upsetting you. Wake up now and see that existence is just like those dreams. Again from Marcus Aurelius, drama, combat, war, terror, numbness. Every day these things wipe out your sacred principles. Wherever your mind entertains them and you let them slip in. The outside world is up to us. The events are up to us. Seneca again said, show me that good life doesn't consist in length, but in use. And it is possible, no entirely too common, for a person who have had a long life to have lived very little. And Seneca put it best, there's nothing so certain in our fears that's not yet more certain in the fact that most of what we dread comes to nothing. But from all my study, the two facts, the two cores of Stoicism that I cling to every day, there are only two things that you control in your life. Only two things. Your thoughts and your actions. That's all you can control. Not another person, not another event. Your thoughts, your actions. If most of what we dread comes to nothing, how do we stop from going down the rabbit hole of worrying about the sea of problems that we are floating in? Epictetus again. I love this one. We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how to respond to them. Okay, time for a story. Okay. If you've heard this story, act like you have not. It's a good story, and it's worth repeating even if you've heard it before. It comes from an ancient tradition, probably from Persia 3,000 years ago. I learned it from the Jewish tradition, and it's a King Solomon story. So King Solomon had all these advisors, and the most renowned was Ben-Nai-Wa. And Ben-Nai-Wa was brilliant. He was able to advise. Solomon was a wise guy, and Ben-Nai-Wa was always able to advise him. But Solomon thought that Ben-Nai-Wa was getting a little too uppity, so he wanted to humiliate him. He wanted him to teach him some humility, to make him humble. So he brought Ben-Nai-Wa to him and said, okay, here's what I want you to do. Go find me an object. I've heard that it exists. And this object is magical. When a happy person looks at it, it makes them sad. And when a sad person looks at it, it makes them happy. Go, find it for me. Now, so Ben-Nai ponders, and so he starts due diligence. Talks to people, gets to town, interviews people. Nobody has any idea what this could be. Went from town to town throughout the kingdom, could not find anything. Finally, in desperation, he comes back empty-handed, finds the local market, goes to a junk dealer whose wares were spread out on a carpet, and he starts talking to this guy. I'm lost. I've got to go back to King Solomon. I have nothing. And the old man, the junk dealer, said, okay. Went back in the back, brought out a very simple silver ring, wrote some inscriptions on the inside, handed it to Ben-Nai-Wa. Ben-Nai-Wa looked at it, smiled, and returned to King Solomon. He presents it to the king, to King Solomon. And all the other court advisors were around, knowing that certainly he would fail. King Solomon looked at the ring, took off all his other rings, put on this simple ring, and said, yes. For inside the ring was the inscription, Gam Zi Tabor, translated as, this too shall pass. King Solomon said, it was I who needed a lesson in humility, for all my riches and all my power are temporary. This too shall pass is not surrendering, nor resignation to the events of the world. Remember that we are only in control of our thoughts and actions. And to live a good life, we must embody and live in accordance with our beliefs through our actions. Just thinking is not a path to a meaningful life. The Stoics and King Solomon teach us that many, many things are beyond our control. But while embracing reality is essential, it's not passive, and it's not resignation, and it is not acceptance. We get to our future by our thoughts and actions today. Even if we don't live to see that better world, all we can do is think, act, and live accordance with your beliefs and privilege and principles at every moment, at every incident. How do you sustain that? How do you sustain accepting reality and saying this will pass, but then think it through and act? I believe you need hope. Hope can buoy you up amidst this incredible chaos that I feel we're living in. But where can you find hope? I don't think you find it. I think you make it. I make it, personally. I make it by trying to be around children, young people, whenever possible. They don't worry about things beyond their control. Almost everything in their life is beyond their control. But they're living with the beginner's mind. And I find a tremendous amount of hope in that and inspiration. I make hope by being in service to others. I have absolutely no expectation that I'll make any difference. But for me, it's the right thing to do. And it's in harmony with my beliefs. I make hope by working on my thoughts. Now, I'm not there yet, but I try not to respond to the craziness and the injustice in the world I try not to respond with hate. I try to respond with love and compassion. I get angry. But to respond with hate, that just sustains the divisiveness that we are being manipulated into in this society. Don't fall for that. You are not living up to your full life potential if you are overwhelmed and frozen with fear about external events that are outside of your control. You are not living up to your full potential if you are overwhelmed with what might happen. For living a life of fear, worry, and dread, you're going to miss out on living today. Is the world a mess? That depends on your thoughts. Something that only you control. Are we doomed? That depends on your actions. Something only you control. Will this ever end? Yes. The mess of the world will either end by your death or by you rearranging your thoughts and your actions. It'll end then. What will you choose? May we all recognize that everything has an arc, a beginning, a peak, and an ending. May we be fully present to fully enjoy each moment because that's all we have. Let us let go of holding on to what is transient. Let us be fully present every moment for ourselves and for each other. Amen. And blessed be.
Greg, that was lovely. And thank you, Reverend Russ. That was lovely. Thank you for reminding us of the power of hope and how all things turn. As we commit together to turn hope we make towards justice for all. And thanks to all of you also for participating today. If you are here for the first time, consistent with long-standing UU tradition, you are our honored guests. You see that donation plate? It's by the entrance there, and you can disregard it. You are our guests. Thank you for being here. Welcome. Today is our gift to you. And for our visitors from other UU congregations, what I have just said, well, I am not quite finished speaking to you yet. At last Sunday's service of UU General Assembly, I was much struck by its theme of partnership, of the prospect of cooperation among various UU congregations. This kind of partnership, even when mutually beneficial, this constitutes a form of generosity, a manifestation of the generous spirit. The pandemic has been hard on all of us, continues to challenge us. When under stress, when in pain, there is a natural human tendency, I suppose, to retreat, to pull back, or maybe to lash out, to be mean or to be aggressive. At UUCC, we chose a different path. Fell into a different path, really. Learning to systematically and thoughtfully reach out to other congregations. And not by design, some of this karma, if you want to call it that, came back to us with last December's All Music fundraiser for senior co-siders here, where we received musical contributions from 5 distinct congregations. To date, we have achieved significant partnerships with the UU Community of Lake County, the UU Fellowship of Santa Cruz County, and we appreciate the administrative support of the UUs of San Mateo and their convoy that has come to attend today. And we have fostered, UUCC has fostered, to various degrees, 3 recent graduates of Star King. I mention this because there is currently a shortage of UU ministers. And we have fostered, through a shared pulpit class, co-sponsored with the UU Fellowship of Santa Cruz County, the development of about a half dozen lay speakers not affiliated with UUCC. So we're working on the Star King pipeline. Isn't that right, Sean? Kai, Jane, Sylvia. At GA, the Reverend Gretchen Haley mentioned the prospect of silos. And as the pandemic recedes, we hope we have the option to return to congregational silos. I just hope we don't. I'm asking you all nice. If you're up for a specific action, maybe subscribe to the UUCC YouTube channel. We're about halfway to 100 subscribers, and extra good things happen for a channel with over 100 subscribers. Now, if anything I've said today somehow moves your generous spirit, maybe write UUCC a check. There are instructions in the order of service on the last page. And you'll also have an option for donating online. Thank you. While these collections take place, Tom will lead us in a couple rounds of We Who Are Gathered. For people who have attended UUCC before, you'll likely recognize this song tune as We of the Coastside, the UUCC congregational hymn, sung in round, today retitled and ever so slightly tweaked for an extra big hug. Tom wrote the music. Technically, I wrote the lyrics, which were inspired here by you, by this community we call the UU Coastside community, and by the presence of all of you here today. As I said, to make such a gift, follow the instructions for donations in the order of service.
So here is our hymn. You'll find it underneath the hymnals in the seats by you. And Lynn Grace and I and Bill will lead you in singing it. We'll first just sing it for you, and then you can join us. We who are gathered, we care for our neighbors, seek for more justice and sing for more peace, open in heart and bringing more love for all. So now you try, all right? We who are gathered, we care for our neighbors, seek for more justice and sing for more peace, open in heart and bringing more love for all. All right, now we'll try it in canon. So this group will sing first, this row will sing second, and that row will sing last. All right? So Linda Grace will lead this group. Oh, here's what I mean. This is actually written as a canon. So this group will start singing, we will gather, we care for neighbors. When they get there, this group will start, we will gather. It's like row your boat.
Yeah, I get that. Which group are you talking about?
Oh, okay. I meant you will be, you two rows, let's say, will be group 2, and everybody else on this side will be group 3.
Where's the edgy ones?
We'll just do it a couple of times. So 1 and 2 and
We who are gathered, we care for our neighbors, seek for more justice and sing for more neighbors. We who are gathered, and sing for our neighbors, for more justice and sing for love. For we who are gathered, we sing for more neighbors, sing for more justice and sing for more peace. Open in heart and bring more love for all. All right, we'll get better next time.
No room for
Are we having fun yet?
Yeah.
Anyway, Tricia will now lead us in extinguishing our chalice.
The one from 2015. We now extinguish our candle flames. Please join me in reading these words by Elizabeth Sully Jones. Okay. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Guide My Feet is a traditional African American spiritual that comes out of the experience of America's original sin, racism and slavery, and is inspired by the Psalms and many other verses in the Bible. So, please stand if you can, and if not, just straighten up and stand in the Spirit. And as you can, join us in this beautiful hymn.